Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado. Now the Toronado, over its 4 generations, was made between 1966 and 1992. This first gen lasted between 1966 and 1970, and it's a personal luxury vehicle that prioritised space and comfort over all else. And to achieve this, this was a front-wheel drive car, and it was the first US front-wheel drive vehicle since the 1937 Cord 810. And being a personal luxury vehicle, they had to accommodate a lot of different things. So firstly, with it being front-wheel drive, it had to package a V8 as well as a transmission into an engine bay no larger than one for a conventional rear-wheel drive car. Firestone actually designed the tyres especially for the Toronado, called the Toronado front drive tyre, having a stiffer sidewall than normal to deal with all the power going through those front wheels. The Toronado was also GM's first subframe automobile. The subframe carried the powertrain, front suspension and floor pan, allowing for greater isolation of road and engine harshness, meaning it's a far more relaxing and comfortable car to drive in. Also has only a 3-speed automatic gearbox, again making it an easy car to drive. And to fit into the tight space, Oldsmobile adopted torsion bars for the Tornado's front suspension. This was the first GM passenger car application of torsion bars in the US, along with conventional unequal length double wishbones. And all of that in all makes this a very comfortable, relaxing and easy car to drive, and easily one of the best of its kind from the 60s in America, quite frankly. And you can see that in the interior, as you can see, because it's got no transmission tunnel, no drivetrain tunnel or anything like that going under the car to the rear wheels. It's got a completely flat floor, again very unusual for America at the time. And it's all of the dials and switches and everything are right in the reach of the driver, and plenty of space for the passenger, and a fair decent amount of space in the rear as well, although the fastback styling does limit headroom a little bit. Also you get a big benefit in the boot as well, because again you've got no drivetrain in there, so you can fit a full-size spare wheel while still having plenty of room for any of your luggage. And like I said, you had to fit in a conventional V8 with a transmission up front. And it's hardly a small V8 either. It's a 7-litre V8 engine producing 385 horsepower and 475 pounds-feet of torque, all going through those front wheels, which is obviously quite a lot. Now granted, the weight of this car at 4,496 pounds is not exactly an advantage, and the fact that it has brake drums all round is also a big disappointment, because you've got to stop all of that weight with very, very poor technology in terms of brakes, and does mean that this does not stop very well at all. But they're the only two flaws really, the weight and the brakes. Everything else is pretty much spot on. And even though it's got a lot of power going through those front wheels, because of the weight, because of the transmission, it's not a car that is sporty in kind of hot hatchback kind of terms or anything like that. Even though it's got far more power than many other hot hatchbacks would have, it's still not a sporty vehicle. It's a luxury cruiser, and that is something it does really rather well. So let's get out onto the open road and see what it can do. So despite the large amount of power and the really rather sizable engine, this is not a car that prioritises speed or acceleration or even really handling. But that said, it's still a reasonable car in terms of acceleration and top speed. So let's get it down this drag strip and see how well it can do, and then we'll probably go out onto the track. So let's see what happens. So with that front wheel drive system and the fact it's only got a 3-speed auto, it does not have the best launch. And acceleration is really rather quite relaxed, I'll put it that way, because like I said, it's not a car prioritising speed or acceleration. It's more about just getting you somewhere in style and luxury really. So I think we're doing about 100 miles an hour thereabouts there. I didn't actually see, I was too busy concentrating on these stupid barrels that are everywhere. But still a reasonably quick enough car. And although it's not high revving, as you can see, it's just over 5,000 RPM, which is quite typical for the time from an American car. And that weight is certainly also holding it back, because 385 horsepower, nearly £500 feet of torque is hardly a small amount, but yeah, that weight is definitely getting on for SUV territory from today, modern days, more than anything from the 60s. So yeah, that is a little bit of a disappointment in that regard. I would have liked it to have been a few £100 less, but then again, it wouldn't have been as luxurious. So yeah, let's get onto the track. Let's look at the stats first, which are not particularly great. We're in the lower end of D class, and yeah, there are the stats. So yeah, speed and handling are reasonable, but acceleration, launch and braking are all quite poor. Off-road capability is rather good for a heavy front-wheel drive car, but yeah, everything else outside of the speed and handling is pretty low down, really, which again is not massively surprising. This is a large, long, heavy car, so to expect it to have, you know, the kind of handling of a 60s sports car is asking a bit too much, especially considering it's never meant to be a sports car. Personal luxury vehicles, yeah, prioritise, you know, comfort and refinement and everything else more than, you know, speed and handling. But handling is actually fairly reasonable, considering, you know, it's got that massive engine up front and 63% of the weight is up front. It doesn't handle anywhere near as bad as you would expect it to be. Sure, it's got understeer and you can definitely feel the weight there, but it does hang on in there at times. And yeah, I have had this going over 100 miles an hour around corners and didn't feel like it was on the edge of, you know, crashing or going off of the road. So in that regard, it's alright. But yeah, I'll listen to the engine first and then we'll talk about it some more. So yeah, being a 3-speed, it's got quite long gears, so this is not going to be something that's going to, you know, win over a small tight circuit that, you know, needs the car in gear at the best opportunities. But yeah, it's still a reasonably quick car. 0 to 60 takes 8.217 seconds. 0 to 100 is dealt with in 20.017 seconds. And it will go into a top speed of 148 miles an hour, which is faster than some muscle cars from that period, which would typically get through their 4 gears in no time at all and top out at 130, 140 miles an hour. So top speed wise, it's actually pretty good, but I wouldn't want to be at that kind of top speed given the really rather poor brakes, which are not helped by the excessive weight. So yeah, the brakes really are quite poor, unfortunately, which is the big hindrance towards making this an enjoyable car to drive, quite frankly. But one thing I do like about this car is the way it looks. I think it looks absolutely glorious. It really is styled far more differently than some of the personal luxury vehicles from the time. And I really rather like the interior as well, especially with the scrolling speedometer. We've seen side speedometers on American cars, but this is the first time I've ever seen one of those on an American car. So yeah, really rather do like that, to be honest. It's mesmerising in a lot of ways, and yeah, that is a really rather nice feature on this. And yeah, it's just an enjoyable car to just drive around with. It's, yeah, I'm not going to set any speed records or, you know, lap records or anything like that, but it is an enjoyable car to drive, and it is like the oldest American front-wheel drive car we've ever had. And yeah, it's one that it was innovative for the time, even though it's got the really rather uninnovative brakes that it's having to deal with. But thankfully, disc brakes were available a year later on the front, so yeah, 1967 version is probably the one to go for. But overall, this is a really good car, and it's a really interesting car, and yeah, it's a rather unique car for the Forza lineup as well. It's only the second ever Oldsmobile we've had on a Forza game before, so yeah, that in of itself is a good point, even if, yeah, those brakes really do not stop the car whatsoever. But yeah, you can get this via the car pass. It's the first car in the recent update at the car pass, and yeah, if I hadn't had the car pass at this point, then I would have gotten it with this being introduced, because it is a car that I've wanted on a Forza game for a while. And yeah, it really does make me wish we had other personal luxury vehicles from this time, like the Lincoln Continental with its suicide doors, or the Buick Riviera. those three cars would be an absolutely amazing addition to a Forza game. But yeah, as it is, we've got this great car to you know, sully our my taste for now, and yeah, put off my wanting of those kind of vehicles. But yeah, would love to see them in the game, but we still have 3 other great cars to look forward to in the car pass, so yeah, really looking forward to getting around to them at some point. But nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.